Lorraine Hansberry wrote this play, and I'm sure you all know her from Raisin in the Sun. After the huge hit of Raisin in the Sun, it was quite a phenomenon for the African American theater community and the African American community, and for Lorraine. She wrote it at 29 years old. It was produced when she was 29 years old, won all kinds of awards. It just catapulted her into a whole other realm as far as her career. And she began writing The Sign in about 1960, 61. Soon after that, she was diagnosed with cancer, pancreatic cancer. Yeah, and soon after that, she divorced her husband, Robert Nemiroff. And I believe the reason why she did that is that she was gay and she wanted to live an authentic life. So they had a very strong artistic partnership, and so even though they were divorced, he insisted on producing her play. So we're talking about 1960, going into rehearsal in 1963, or no, 64, 50 years ago. This is 50th anniversary. During the rehearsal process, she became more and more ill. And in fact, Louie and I met with Rita Moreno, who was in the original production. And she said that Lorraine wasn't around at all during the rehearsal process. Very, very little. So very, very little changed in the script. So the play ran for about 6 months. They had a lot of trouble with it. The lead actor was fired. The director was fired. The opening night, all the air conditioners broke down in New York City in the summer. So, the critics were completely confused because there's one black man in this play who passes as white. So it was a white cast, and the lead is a Jewish man, and, completely perplexed the community and the critics, because after Raisin in the Sun, they had an expectation, right? So after that, after a kind of tumultuous run, the play actually closed the day that Lorraine Hansberry died, January of 1965. And after that, Robert Nemiroff, her ex-husband, based on the conversations that he had had with her and notes that he had taken, rewrote the play considerably. I mean, he moved scenes, he wrote dialogue, he added a character, he added a couple scenes for a character, and cut it considerably and kind of made it into more of a well-made play. Well-made play, I put in quotation marks. He neatened it up. So he did actually 2 different versions over the years, and so I think all in all there's 6 versions of the play. But we had 4 that we were working with, and we were given permission by the estate to create a conflation. So we took the best of, basically, and we're still creating this script. We open really soon. Not that soon, but we still have a couple weeks. But yeah, so it's been a really very, very interesting process. It started before we went to rehearsal, and it continues while we're in rehearsal. And we're looking for, I think this theme of the authentic self and looking for the authentic self is present throughout all of the characters and really drives each person as they journey through the jazz of this play. And it's very much of what I call a kind of psychological jazz. It's set in the early 60s, and we're really working very hard to find those emotional journeys that are unconventional in a play. And I think part of it is because we had an unfinished play, but I think also part of it was Lorraine's imagination, which is deeply political and deeply passionate about the psychology of human beings. We have a beautiful set in Greenwich Village, and it also transports to Sidney's imagination, which is a mountaintop. That's his escape is a mountaintop. We have music that's, period music, a lot of folk music, which was popular at the time, and we have David Molina, who is really fantastic composer, who's drawing from folk music and drawing from, I would say, Sidney's psychology to create a score for us. One of the things I found when I was doing research about this play was that Greenwich Village was actually called Green Village, and that because it was green. It was all pastures. I think above 14th Street is really where the city started. So, and the roads were made by cows and the native population. So when the city planners started to kind of make the roads, the inhabitants of Green Village were insistent that they keep the odd streets. So those of you who have been to Greenwich Village, I'm sure most of you have, West 4th Street crosses West 11th Street. It's confusing, right? It's and that's the kind of the history of why that is. But I personally think it was that kind of feng shui of that area that attracted and still attracts some amazing artists and revolutionary thinkers, because it's such an unusual layout, right? But we went there as part of our design process. We all met in New York City in Greenwich Village and walked around. We tried to find where Lorraine actually lived with her husband. And kind of we're using the nooks and crannies and examining the nooks and crannies of Greenwich Village to help inform our process in making our design choices. Any other questions, Louie?
No, that's good. That's great. Now, I'm asking her a question now just because she has to go back to rehearsal. She's going to be whisked away in a second. Because we had this big revelation in rehearsal this afternoon. She's going to go cogitate about it. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens tonight. But I did want to say two things. One is the notion about the authentic self, because I think that also is something that probably resonates for all these 4 plays as well. And that sort of voice that's trying to work its way out in our play in a psychological, realistic way, in these other plays in perhaps other ways. And like, what is authentic? In our case, with the all plays are time capsules, basically, right? They're just sort of locking in what it is. And what was really interesting, sort of the archaeology of looking at something from 1964, which has its own passive voice. Remember this, actually, very long sentences that Lorraine Hansberry wrote in, passive voice. And then 20 years later, when Robert Nemiroff radically rewrites it, they're shorter sentences. It's much more well-made. It's a different dramaturgy that was accepted in the time capsule. And so we are looking at it in 2014, kind of go, which is the authentic one? We don't really know, but we're kind of going by instinct and more wanting to be like what it was. This is the 50th anniversary of this play, right? And we want to sort of honor that span. I think you're going to be shocked at how relevant the play is. You're going to be shocked at the conversation about race, ethnicity, politics, religion, gender, roles. You're going to say it was written today in the way that I think we think all great plays, classics, the ones that are classic, even if in a very specific, her whole thing was everything had to be really specific to be universal. Not necessarily true for everybody, but that was her. This is a very specific milieu, which is why I wanted Juliette to just talk about our walking tour for a second. And in that, we say, I don't know those people. Actually, we're going to know ourselves at some point in all these characters, which is kind of the beautiful thing of it. So that's one thing I just wanted to sort of talk about, authentic self, the sort of finding of, and sort of the archaeology, which, Nell in particular, it maybe wants to address a little bit with the coconuts, because it's had its own hugely rich archaeological dig. So I just want to leave, before Juliette very gracefully exits, I just want to say one thing that Lorraine Hansberry thought she was working on in this play, and then we'll go on to Comedy of Errors. I am working on a play which presumes to try and examine something of the nature of commitment. It happens to be, in my opinion, one of the leading problems before my generation here. What to identify with, what to become involved in, what to take a stand on, what, if you will, even to believe in at all. And that's what she's trying to work on, and I think it's still something very potent for us to consider as well. We're really, really excited about this. Some of you have heard me say, this is my absolute all-time favorite play. I cannot tell you why, but it is, and hopefully you'll get a sense of sort of like the potency and the within when you come to see it. And I look forward to those conversations. And thanks, Juliette, for joining us quickly. And
Thank you.
I'll see you later.